Unresolved details of J.D. Tippit's murder. The entire Kennedy assassination is a rabbit hole. But nowhere in this whole event is the rabbit hole deeper than in understanding the J.D. Tippit murder. We actually know that the murder took place near the corner of 10th and Patton Street. We do know that. We know that there were some witnesses to the shooting. Absolutely, we are sure about that. We know that there were 4 bullets removed from Tippit's body. But that's about it. Everything else seems to be conjecture. And it's very difficult to try to figure this out. And here's what I'm currently trying to figure out. And maybe you or someone out there can help me. And I'm serious about this. The mystery that I'm working on starts here. Now, here we see the plaque that was dedicated to the memory of J.D. Tippit for his service and his bravery. Notice where the plaque reads, Tippit exited his police car, at which time Oswald fired 3 shots across the hood, striking Tippit as he pulled his gun. Well, we know that's pretty true, but notice this last statement. Oswald then came around the rear of the car and fired a 4th shot. This sounds to me like the coup de grace, the shot of grace, or the stroke of grace that ends the life of a person that may be suffering. But which one of the witnesses gave this detail about Oswald coming around the rear of the car and firing a 4th shot? Certainly it wasn't Helen Markham, the chief witness for the Warren Commission. Notice what Helen Markham says about the shooting.
But then he got out of the car, slow motion. He calmly crawled out of this car, and he started around to the front of the car. And just as he got even with the front wheel on the driver's side, this man shot him 3 times in the wink of your eye. And then he turned and he was fooling with this gun, and he came back down 10th Street toward me. And he saw me, he stopped. And he looked at me, I looked at him. And he was furious. His eyes were big, and of course mine were too. And all it was, I put my hands up over my face like this, real tight, closed my eyes, and I stood there. And then I opened my fingers, opened my eyes, and gradually pulled them down. Well, I don't know what happened to him, but he just went off in a little trot.
So let's, just to be sure, Helen Markham's testimony was just about exactly what she said on this video. Here's how the part of this testimony went with the Warren Commission. She was being interviewed by Mr. Ball, and his first question here is, how many shots did you hear? Mrs. Markham responds, 3. What did you see the policeman do? Mrs. Markham replies, he fell to the ground, and his cap went a little way out into the street. Then Mr. Ball said, what did the man do? Mrs. Markham, the man, he just walked calmly, fooling with his gun. And Mr. Ball asks, toward what direction did he walk? And Mrs. Markham says, he come back towards me. So here's the map of where Mrs. Markham was standing. And there we see Tippit's car, and it's about 116 feet from her to the car, we estimate. So there's another witness that saw some of the Tippit shooting, and that would be Domingo Benavides. Now, he was driving a truck a yellow Chevrolet pickup truck down 10th Street. And let's listen to his testimony.
As I was driving down the street, I seen this police car was sitting here, and the officer was getting out of the car, and apparently had been talking to the man that was standing by the car. The policeman got out of the car, and as he walked past the windshield of the car where they'd kind of lined up over the hood of the car, well, this other man shot him. And, of course, he was reaching for his gun. And so I was standing there, sitting there in the truck, and not in no big hurry to get out. Of course, I was sitting there watching everything. This man turned from the car then and took a couple steps. Then, as he turned to walk away, he was unloading his gun, and he took the shells, held them in his hand, and as he took off, he threw them in the bushes, more or less like not really trying to get rid of them. I guess he didn't figure he was caught anyway, so he just threw them in the bushes. But as he started to turn and walk away, he stopped and looked back at me, and I didn't know if he figured, well, I'll just let this poor guy go, or he has nothing to do with it, or, I'm not out to kill everybody, just, whoever gets in my way, I guess.
So here we see the scene of 10th and Patent area, and we see where Benavides' truck is parked right here. You see the yellow truck is parked very close to Tippit's car. And in his Warren Commission testimony, which I'm going to read in a second, Benavides is describing how he is driving west down 10th Street. He's actually headed towards Tippit's car, which is on his left side. And Bellin's question was, what did you see then? And Mr. Benavides says, well, I then pulled up, and I seen this officer standing by the door. The door was open to the car, and I was pretty close to him. And I seen Oswald, or the man that shot him, standing on the other side of the car. Mr. Bellin, all right. Did you see the officer as he was getting out of the car? And Mr. Benavides says he'd already gotten out. Mr. Bellin then asks, where did you see the other man? Benavides says the other man was standing to the right side of the car, the rider's side of the car, and it was standing right in front of the windshield on the right front fender. And then I heard the shot. Actually, I wasn't looking for anything like that. So I heard the shot, and I just turned into the curb, looked around to miss a car, I think, and then I pulled up to the curb, hitting the curb, and I ducked down, and then I heard two more shots. So how many shots did you hear all told? Benavides says, I heard 3 shots. And Mr. Bellin asks, you heard 3 shots? And Benavides answers, yes, sir. Mr. Bellin asks, where were you when your vehicle stopped? Mr. Benavides answered, about 15 foot, just directly across the street and maybe a car length away from the police car. So he was very close to the action, as we can see there. But much of the time he was spent ducking down in his truck, which is understandable. But he hears only 3 shots. He does not report Oswald going around the back of the car and then shooting Tippit a 4th time in the head. And he declined to go to the police department lineup, but he was closest to Oswald during the actual shooting, and later admits that he was positive that the shooter was Oswald. But he does add another interesting detail. Mr. Bellin asks him, did you notice where the gun of the policeman was? And he answers, the gun was in his hand. He was partially lying on his gun and on his hand too. But there's yet another witness that we need to hear from. Just down the street on Patton, about a block away, was Ted Callahan, a man that was working in a used car dealership and was able to testify about Oswald's movement. Here is a short portion of his testimony as he appeared in the 1986 film On Trial, Lee Harvey Oswald.
I was standing on the front porch of our office, and when I heard what sounded like 5 pistol shots,
Okay, could you pick up the pointer there by your right hand and indicate on the diagram where you were when you heard the shots and where the shots appeared to be coming from?
I was right here on this porch.
All right.
And the shots sounded like they were coming this direction on 10th Street.
Okay. Now, when you heard these shots, what did you do at that point?
I ran out to the sidewalk on Patton Street.
Okay, would you use your pointer to point out the locations involved?
Yes, I just ran from here out to the sidewalk.
Okay. Again, with the pointer, would you tell the jury what you observed at that point?
I saw a man running from this front yard on 10th Street across the street, which would be the west side of Patton.
Did he have anything in either of his hands?
Yes, sir. He had a pistol in his right hand.
Okay. How was he carrying the pistol?
He was carrying it in a raised pistol position.
Would you demonstrate that for the jury?
Like this.
Did he run past you where you were?
No. He ran toward me. I
All
was
right.
on the east side. He was on the west side of Patton.
What's the closest you came to him?
The FBI measured it at about 56 feet.
Okay.
And
Did you get a good, clear view of him?
very good view.
Did you talk to him at all?
Yes, sir.
What'd you say to him, and what did he say to you, if anything?
I hollered at him. I said, "Hey, man, what the hell's going on?" And he slowed almost to a halt, turned in my direction, still had his pistol this direction. He said something to me, which I couldn't understand it. Then he proceeded to run toward Jefferson through this front yard right here and proceeded west on 10th on Jefferson Street.
Let's take a look at the photo of Oswald. Looking at Lee Harvey Oswald, is he or is he not the man that you saw that day?
That's the man, yes, sir.
Any question in your mind about that, sir?
None whatsoever.
Okay, you may sit down here. Thank you. After the man ran past you, after Oswald ran past you, then what did you do, sir?
That's when I ran toward
Yes.
the corner of 10th and Patton and to see what was going on, and that's where I saw the police squad car and Officer Tippit lying in front of the squad car.
Did he appear to be dead at that time?
He did.
And what did you do?
I leaned over and felt his pulse at his throat. Then I got on, found no pulse, and I got on police radio and told them that an officer had been killed. They told me, yes, they'd already heard about it, to stay off the air.
Mr. Kellaway, on the night of the Tippit murder, did you go to a lineup at the Dallas Police Department around 6:30 p.m.?
Yes, sir, I did.
How many men were in the lineup?
4.
Were all 4 men of the approximate same age, height, and weight?
They were.
What happened when the 4 men stepped out in front of you?
Well, I recognized Oswald right away as a man that I'd seen running down Patton.
Thank you. No further questions.
There is one other Warren Commission witness that we need to talk about, and that is the taxi driver named William Scoggins. William Scoggins was parked down at the end of, or by, I should say, the corner of 10th and Patton. And here's a diagram of the area we'll go back to, and you see the yellow car there on the corner of 10th and Patton is his cab. Now here's his testimony that he gave to the Warren Commission, the most important part of it, I think. He's being interviewed by Mr. Bellin, and he starts off the interview like this. He says, will you please state then what happened, what you saw, what you did, what you heard? Mr. Scoggins says, well, at first I've seen this police car cruising east. About how fast was it cruising, Mr. Bellin asks. Not more than about 10 or 12 miles an hour, I would say. It was going east on what street? It was going east on 10th Street. All right, did you see the police car go across right in front of yours? Yes, he went right down the street. He come from the west going east on 10th. Then what did you see, Mr. Bellin asks. I noticed he stopped down there, and I wasn't paying too much attention to the man, you see, just used to see him every day. But then I kind of looked down the street, saw this someone that looked to me like he was going west, Now, I couldn't exactly say whether he was going west or he was in the process of turning around, but he was facing west when I saw him. Mr. Bellin says, okay. Mr. Scoggins, he was stopped there. Let me ask you this now. When you first saw this man, had the police car stopped or not? Yes, he stopped. When I saw that he stopped, then I looked to see why he was stopping. You see, and I saw this man with a light-colored jacket on. Mr. Bellin says, now you saw a man with a light-colored jacket. With relation to the police car, was the man east of the police car, west of the police car, or kind of... And Mr. Scoggins interrupts and says, just a little east is the best I can remember. He was a little bit east of the police car? Mr. Scoggins says, yes, he was just a little bit forward. The police car headed east, and he was a little bit, maybe not more than the front end of the car. Was he on the sidewalk? Mr. Scoggins answered, at the time I saw him, yes. When you first saw him, I believe you said you saw the man's face, or did you not say that? Mr. Scoggins says, I couldn't see the man's face from there. I saw the face when he passed the cab. Mr. Bellin, all right, then what did you see the man do? Well, I saw him turning, facing the street, and then I didn't see him anymore after that because he went behind some shrubbery. Did you see the police officer do anything? I saw him get out of the police car, Mr. Scoggins says. He got out of the driver's side, left-hand side. Then what do you see happen? Well, he took about a step, I would say approximately 1 or 2 steps. And then I wasn't really, I went back to my eating, and about that time I heard the shots. How many shots did you hear? 3 or 4 in that neighborhood. They was fast. Mr. Bellin says they were fast shots. Mr. Scoggins says, yes, they were fast. What did you do or say or hear? Well, then I saw the man falling. He grabbed his stomach and he fell. He fell forward. He fell forward? Yeah. Do you remember where his head was lying as he fell forward, if you know? Mr. Scoggins answered, I wouldn't be sure about that. He kind of fell in a crumpled manner, I would say. Mr. Bellin then asked, when you saw the officer fall, when was the next place that you saw the man? Or did you see him at the same time you saw the officer fall, the other man? Mr. Scoggins said, no, I saw him coming kind of toward me around the cutoff there, and he never did look at me. He looked back over his left shoulder like that as he went by. It seemed like I could see his face, his features, and everything plain, He was walking or running or trotting. Mr. Scoggins says, kind of loping, trotting, not in a big hurry. It didn't seem like it at first. Mr. Bellin asked, did he have anything in his hand? Mr. Scoggins says he had a pistol in his left hand. Did he appear to be doing anything with the pistol or not? Yes, he had it holding in his left hand in a manner that was barrel was up like this, and the stock was down here, curved back in here. Did it look like the gun had been flipped open at all or not? I wouldn't say. I couldn't say. You don't know? Mr. Scoggins says, no, I don't. Mr. Bellin, you said that he had it in his left hand. Yes, sir. Did you see where his right hand was? He was kind of running like this in this manner. Did you hear the man say anything? I heard him mutter something like, poor damn cop, or poor dumb cop. He said that twice, and I don't know whether the middle word was damn or dumb, but anyway, he muttered that twice. Interesting testimony here, isn't it? Scoggins sees Oswald. He sees him stop, sees the police car stop, sees Tippit get out of the car and walk to the front of the car, and he hears in the neighborhood of about 4 shots that he described as fast. But he doesn't report Oswald circling back around the rear of the car to deliver the coup de grace headshot. He sees Oswald trotting towards him. Oswald cuts through the corner yard and behind the taxicab. He crosses the street and continues south on Patent with a pistol pointed upwards in his left hand. And by the way, Scoggins later identified Oswald positively in a lineup. So in conclusion, if none of the Warren Commission witnesses saw Oswald walk around the rear of Tippit's car and fire a final fatal shot into Tippit's head, why then is this story so often repeated? And how did it end up on the Tippit memorial plaque? And why does this story keep surfacing? Is there anything we can learn about trying to unravel so many conflicting stories and earwitness statements, eyewitness statements, and all the details surrounding the Kennedy assassination? Well, the Kennedy assassination is not unique in this. Every investigation and story has its confounding stories. Look at the assassination of Robert Kennedy, the assassination of Martin Luther King, Watergate, 9/11. Out of the thousands of pieces of truth, some people will put them in logical order and come to a reasonable understanding. But in order to do so, we have to be willing to be unbiased, use good sources, we have to be flexible, and we have to use a lot of common sense. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to bringing you more bits and pieces about the assassination. And by the way, after some research, I finally discovered who the actual writer of the words on the Tippit Memorial plaque was. Here is a short clip of historian and ex-FBI analyst Ferris Rookstool III speaking at an event presented by the Preservation Dallas and Old Oak Cliff Conservation League. Let me know what you think. And please, by all means, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Men on the Sixth Floor. Until then, this is Glenn Sample bidding you a good day. I'll see you next time.
What we're going to talk about tonight and see in some of the photographs is the crime scene photographs of 10th and Patton Street, where Officer J.D. Tippit lost his life. As full disclosure, I must admit, so you understand my background, I spent a career with the FBI and was in charge of all of the John F. Kennedy assassination records. Tippit had a brief conversation with Oswald through the vent window on the police car, put the car in park, and started to get out of the patrol car, at which time Oswald, from across the hood of the car, fired 3 shots into Officer Tippit's chest as he's pulling the pistol and fell to the ground. Oswald came around from the rear of the car and fired the 4th shot into the right temple of Officer Tippit. So it's interesting to think that the call of duty, the call of honor, in one case actually caused the call of duty with the Old Oak Cliff Conservation League to lead the charge, and I was the historian who wrote the 109-page report, and then, of course, subsequently the wording on the 289 words on the marker.